The last thing Quinn could remember was Layla shouting his name. When he finally reached the bottom, Quinn felt his body continuously sinking. If the plant swallowed me and now I'm falling, doesn't that mean I'm falling into another part of the mountain or underneath the planet? Quinn thought. He was strong and he had a sturdy body as a vampire, but what was he falling into? "What the hell is this?" a boy yelled as his voice echoed out. "It can't be. Is that Fex's voice?" Quinn thought. Bang! The force and Fex's weight struck Quinn's head and managed to push him through the last bit of strange substance. All he could do was brace himself for impact as he curled up into a ball. Covered in rubble from the walls of the cave, Quinn stood up and discovered that not a lot of damage was done to him. Just then, he could see Fex falling through the sky nearly at the same spot. "Quinn, catch me!" Fex shouted. Still remembering how Fex had shoved him down under here, Quinn chose not to help. If the fall didn't kill him, it wouldn't kill Fex. Stepping to the side at the last moment, Quinn allowed Fex to land headfirst into the same spot as him. They seemed to be in a large, empty cavern. Several large holes or tunnels seemed to lead to different paths. Looking above them, they saw the plant hanging from the ceiling that had swallowed them whole. Layla and Varden were both being slowly sucked down, while their faces were pressed up against each other. This is all your fault for grabbing me," Layla shouted. As the two fell from the plant into the large cave, Layla used her ability to slow her down from falling at a fast speed. Varden also used the same ability and achieved the same result, so they managed to get down onto the floor safely. In another section of the cavern, the last pairing was of Sia and Peter. Sia noticed that Peter's expression didn't have any trace of fear. She felt like she had no choice but to grab him. Sia was hurt, but Peter managed to break most of her fall. But as she opened her eyes and looked at her comrade next to her, she could see that all of his limbs were mangled and broken. "What's that noise?" Syl said as he stood up from his usual crouched position. The screams from Layla seemed to be so loud that they even reached Syl, who would usually ignore most things. Syl placed his hand on Varden's shoulder, who was in the chair. "Swap with me," Syl said, his grip tightening on Varden's shoulder. Knowing that he had no choice, Varden reluctantly left the seat. "Why are you attacking me?" Syl asked. In another part of the cavern, two more students seemed to be stuck together, dealing with their problems. Sia was taken aback at the sight of Peter's legs all mangled. They were utterly broken, and it looked like part of the bone had splintered through parts of the skin. She turned her head away, unable to look at the sight any longer. "Stay here, I will go look for help," Sia said in a panic. "You know, if you didn't hold on to me, the fall wouldn't have been as bad," Peter replied in a calm voice. "I think we should go this way," a voice said, stood right behind her. "Pio, but how? Your legs were all mangled just a few seconds ago." Sia still didn't know Peter's ability, but she had a guess. His watch indicated he was a level 4, and if he managed to recover from an injury like that, most likely his ability was a healing one or a regenerative one. The only thing she couldn't quite put her finger on was the healing speed. Not knowing where to run to, she decided to head into one of the many tunnels. If another student had arrived and had no relation to the person named Pio, then maybe she would have bolted towards Logan, but seeing that the two of them had some type of a relationship, she didn't want to risk it. The cave was dark, and it was hard for her to see, but each of the tunnels gave off a little reflection of light. There was always the chance that the small amount of light could be radiating from a beast, or it could be a raw crystal. Because of this, as Sia ran, she also had to be careful about her footing. "This is a pain. I wish I bought some type of light with me or something," Sia complained. Taking another step forward, her foot seemed to be lodged between something. She quickly managed to pull it, but it had greatly slowed her down. She scuttled along until she was behind Logan. Logan then tapped something on the side of his suit, which brightened up the area around him with green lights. The pieces on Logan's equipment were illuminating a small 5-meter radius around them. "I adjusted the scanner the school gave us to increase its radius. I had to power it with my beast crystals. I don't get any points for doing that, but to me, it was well worth it," said Logan. "That's when I discovered that there seemed to be a strange tunnel underground, but they didn't quite look natural, so I decided to investigate. I never thought anyone else would be down here, so it was a nice surprise to see you." "Do you know the way out?" Sia asked. Realizing from what Logan said, he should have a wide area mapped out using his scanner. "No," Logan replied. Although this was a lie. He knew they would ask to lead him out of here, but Logan had discovered something on his scanner that he had to check out before leaving. Somewhere inside the large cave, Fex and Quinn had decided to walk down one of the tunnels. While inside the tunnel, the connection between Peter seemed to be lost. It had happened ever since he went underground. Quinn thought that it might have something to do with the distance between the two at the moment, as he didn't know that Peter and the others were underground as well. Thinking that help would never arrive, they decided to just leave it up to fate and pick the tunnel with the biggest entrance. As they walked down the tunnel, they noticed that the walls were surrounded by thin blue crystals that gave off a slight glow to them. Not enough to light up the whole area, but one could follow the small light source quite easily. "What are these?" Quinn asked, looking at the small crystals. "Basic tier crystal. Would you like to store it in your system?" The shock from the message was quite immense. At school, they had been taught that the beast crystals could only be obtained from beasts. This was why the human race had been sending hunting parties to slay the beasts, even though there was a chance of death. Some crystals could be used to create powerful weapons, even more powerful than their modern equipment. But right here, crystals were hanging freely on the wall around him, and it wasn't just one crystal. There seemed to be hundreds of crystals through the tunnel they had just walked. Exiting the tunnel, it seemed like they'd arrived at what looked like a type of town. Buildings stretched out far and wide, and it was comparably as large as any one of the shelters they've seen before. Their gaze moved on towards the tallest building that stood in the center of the place. Although a town underneath a mountain was surprising to them, it didn't seem impossible. There were rumors of such shelters being built on other planets where the temperatures could reach extreme levels at different times of the year. Underground shelters were the only answer to such uninhabitable places. Although the place looked abandoned and was void of people, the buildings were a different matter. The structures looked perfectly fine and hadn't deteriorated a single bit. The only semblance of the passage of time of abandonment was a layer of dust or rock-like substance from the ceiling that coated the top of everything. And finally, the design. Although the substance was strong, it wasn't as flexible and nimble as Galthrium. This meant that the edges weren't smoothed out, giving a slight rocky look. "They're Dalki structures," Quinn muttered. What are you on about?" Flex replied. "These aren't Dalki structures. They're vampire structures." "The boy is right," the system replied. "These resemble the structures that were built in my time." Quinn said, "Why don't we check out some of the buildings? Maybe there will be something inside which will tell us if it was the Dalkis who made this or the vampires." For the first time, as they got closer to the tower, it looked like some of the buildings had been destroyed, as if they had taken part in a battle. The top had crumbled to the ground, and some structures no longer existed. Just then, they heard a sound of growling from the sides. "I guess it's time to call on some extra help." Fex touched his ear and pulled on his dangling earring. Suddenly, in the palm of his hand, the earring started to glow until eventually it started to change its shape, forming what looked like a cross between a bull and a bat. "Ham here at your service," the bull said excitedly as it flew in a circle. It had been a while since Fex had last used Ham, and he was starting to miss his little companion. Finally, I get to spread my wings about," Ham cheered. "Can you sense what's around us?" Fex asked. "I think some beasts are surrounding us," Ham replied. "This place is disturbing the flow of my powers." Ham then started to look around where they were. "Wait, are we back home?" The two boys were surrounded by what looked like strange, dog-like creatures. There were more than 20, and possibly even more in hiding. The dogs had no fur, but displayed a slight tint of red on their skin. Their tongues were out, dangling from their mouth. A bit longer than regular dogs, and a little pointed. However, the most creepy thing about them was that they didn't have eyes. "Inspect, basic tier beast, furry hound. A beast who is blind but has sensitive hearing. It can locate its enemy's position even with the quietest of footsteps. It will often use its long tongue for attacks. The tongue is stronger than most." Now unafraid of the beasts, Quinn wanted to get a kill before Fex, just in case. No one had killed the beast before. The distance between him and the beast wasn't great, but Quinn chose to use the blood kick to try to finish the beast in one strike. 10 EXP gained. First time killing beast, furry hound, 100 bonus EXP gained. 2640 of 3200 XP. Ham above! Fex shouted, and immediately Ham flew up in the sky. Fex then leapt in the air and attached one of his strings to the ring around Ham's nose. From above, Fex was easily able to see his targets. As he detached himself and started swirling down, he precisely knew where to throw out his pieces of string. Hard-earn! As the strings fell, power surging through him left his body and was inserted into the strings, now making them just as hard and sharp as a sword. 5 of the hounds were killed in an instant. Finally, all the hounds in the area were defeated. Fex had defeated 15 of them, while Quinn had 8. 2720 of 3200 EXP. After defeating the dogs, Quinn decided to collect the crystals. "Boss, you're not planning to head to that tower, are you?" Ham said as it flew up in the air. "Why, what's wrong?" Fex said. "I think there might be danger there," Ham replied. While Ham and Fex were busy talking, a notification screen appeared directly in front of Quinn. 5 EXP shared. It was a message that he had never received before, and he found it strange that it came up while he had done nothing. Quinn would gain EXP as long as Peter had killed something and was nearby. Without thinking about it, Peter and Sia followed Logan around. While they were inside the cavern, Logan continued to walk confidently, leading the way. He knew exactly where he wanted to go, as he picked one of the tunnels without checking the others. While traveling, their group also discovered the same type of blue crystals embedded into the wall. Naturally, Logan decided to take one for research, but he already had an idea of what it was just by looking at it. After exiting the tunnel, they too could see the magnificent sight of the strange town, and although it came as a surprise to the other two, Logan had already expected this. It was exactly what had come up on the scanner. The one visible place was the tower that stood in the center, like a beaming torch in the middle. It had the most amount of crystal on the very top, illuminating it in the dark. However, while using his scanner from above, he could see all the building structures and things around it, but he was unable to see what was inside the tower. As they got closer to the tower, Logan transformed his robotic arms into 2 round blasters. While scanning this area earlier, I found that the beasts seem to be concentrated around the tower. Strange, right? Low-level beasts don't usually have a form of high intelligence. They hunt, sleep, and eat. Sometimes they do this in packs and might have a type of territory, but this seems oddly specific. In a place as large as this, and with many beasts, usually they would be several territories and maybe several packs. So why are they all centered around the tower? As if they were guarding it or gathering around it for some reason. As they continued to walk down the street, suddenly Peter ran straight off to the side into one of the buildings. A few moments later, and Peter returned, holding what looked like a dog in his hand. Black blood splattered over him, and the dog was carried lifeless. "They've been following us," Peter said, "and more are coming." It didn't take long after Peter's warning, because Logan and even Sia could now see several dogs in view. Without hesitation, both Logan and Sia started to attack the dogs. She threw out spears, slowing the ones jumping towards her and leaping out of the way. Both Peter and Logan could see there were still plenty around them. Still, they didn't run away but stood there at the edge of the street next to the buildings, growling. On closer inspection, it seemed like the dogs were no longer looking at them. Instead, they were facing the street, looking out towards the tower in front of them. From the street, the sounds of footsteps could be heard. Whatever was coming towards them was frightening the beasts even more, because with each footstep, it looked like the beasts were pulling back slightly. After collecting the beast crystals from the defeated hounds, Quinn suddenly received the message about obtaining EXP. He had figured out that the EXP he just gained must have been from Peter. This meant one thing: Peter was close. Quinn was still unable to sense Peter's presence like he could when he was above ground. Quinn wanted to go searching for Peter. 5 EXP shared. The message just confirmed that Peter was still in combat. So Quinn picked a random direction and headed off. Slowly, Layla's eyes started to open. Her vision was blurry at first, but what stood out to her was the pain in the back of her head. "Are you okay?" Varden asked. "Get away from me," Layla said in a panic. She pushed her feet off the floor against her, and once again her head had banged into the wall. Varden did as asked and slowly backed away, seeing that she was panicked. She had already been hurt, and Varden didn't want to cause any more pain. I'm sorry, Varden said.
Varden, are you okay? Sometimes it seems like you suddenly change. I want to believe you when you say you don't mean to hurt me, but when I end up like this—"
As Layla spoke, her voice was shaky. She tried her best to hide it, but Varden could feel the fear. Lately, the changes happening to Varden had become more frequent, and now for the first time in a while, Syl was actively asking for a seat. The worst thought in his mind was the possibility of one of the others taking control of the seat. If they took over, he wouldn't know what to do. When I first met Quinn, I knew he was different, Varden replied. Of course, at the time, I didn't know he was a vampire. I was sick of it, sick of everything, and decided if I could at least save one person, it would be enough for me.
What does that have to do with me, though? Can't we both get along with Quinn? Layla asked. Are you jealous or something?
Not me, Varden mumbled, too quiet for Layla to hear. I haven't exactly had the best of experiences since coming here, Varden replied. I think it's normal to be a bit unstable after what we have been through. As Varden finished what he was saying, he took a step forward. Layla reacted by shuffling her knees closer to herself, curling into a ball. The sight of this reminded him of Syl, and in a sweet, calming voice, he did what he usually did without thinking about it. Varden started to sing. It will be okay. I will make your worries go away. I am by your side. I will always be kind. As she listened to the soft, angelic voice, without realizing it, Varden was already next to her once again. He gently lifted his hand and touched her head, bringing it down and closer to his chest. All his movements were so soft as he inspected the wound. It was a side of Varden she had never seen before. I like this, Varden, Layla said. This was the first time that Logan had ever felt panic. Due to him having night vision in the helmet he was wearing, he could see the beast before it came into view. Basic tier, intermediate tier, advanced tier, and right now they were about to face something that was at least at king tier level. Throughout history, whenever a beast that had a humanoid shape was discovered, it would at least be at the king tier level or above. Knowing that he would need everyone's help, Logan immediately changed one of his blaster's shapes, slightly allowing it to be more narrow. The armor shifted at a fantastic speed, and when it had finished transforming, Logan quickly fired 3 blasts into the buildings around them. The shots weren't energy blasts like before. Instead, these were sticky light balls. They allowed a considerable amount of light to be shown and would easily stick onto whatever object they hit. The sticky lights had been shot in a triangle formation around them, one to the left, one to the right, and one slightly behind, where the king-tier beast was standing. This lit up the entire street. Now that there was a light source, Sia could see what Logan could see, and she knew straight away the danger of the beast. The beast slowly continued to walk towards the group, and by now, all of the dogs in the area had already scurried away. Although it had an outer human shape, it was a bit on the larger end. It stood around 8 feet tall. Its body was twisted and strange, as if it was made of mud and rocks. The muscle structure of the creature was outlined with plant roots, while the rest just looked like a mound of mud. Several human skeletons could be seen half sunken in its body and half sticking out. Finally, on its 2 long arms, there were no fingers. Instead, they were long and sharp like a blade. The blades shined green in color like a hard jade. What Logan needed to do was get his most powerful weapon and suit on, but it would take some time. His suit started to break down into little spiders. They were eventually all scattered on the floor. From the ground up, they started to rebuild a different type of suit right in front of him. Peter took a look at the beast. It had now stopped walking forward and stood in the middle of the street. It placed one of its bladed hands in front of the other and scraped them against each other. A slight screeching sound could be heard as the beast continued this process. Peter said, "It already considers us intruders. It will keep attacking us until we're gone, I can tell." With those words said, Peter threw his bag to the ground and dashed forward. It was at an incredible speed that Peter had not displayed until this point, and it was a surprise to him. Although Sia was frightened, she wasn't stupid. She too got into position, dashing towards one of the sides of the building. While doing so, she threw out her spirit spears. However, the beast stood there and allowed the spears to be lodged into the upper part of its body. When Peter was in range, the beast swung down its blade hand. Using all his strength, Peter swung both his fists together like a tennis racket. As the hands met with the side of the blade, the power was surprisingly equal. The blades were knocked away, but Peter hadn't budged. Adjusting its power, it swung its blade faster and stronger with its other hand. Peter was unable to do anything. All he could see now was the dark black ceiling above. Peter's legs had been cleanly cut off. The beast then walked forward, ignoring Peter on the ground. Sia then noticed that its body seemed to be facing in a certain direction. It was looking at Logan. The suit's creation was almost done. It was mostly silver in color, matching that of the spiders, unlike the previous one, which was quite large and bulky, looking almost mech-light. Only the last part remained, which was the head. Logan saw the beast coming towards him and decided to quickly place his body into the suit. He planned on allowing the spiders to complete the final part. The suit of armor had been completed. "This won't be enough," Logan predicted after witnessing the fight between Peter and the beast. He had seen Peter fight in the VR game, and he could gauge his strength. There was still one more thing Logan needed. A weapon. A female robotic voice sounded inside his head. 2 intermediate-tier crystals detected. An energy weapon is being generated. The beast was now only a few meters away from Logan's position. The suit he had formed now focused on attack power. Just as Logan was planning to dash towards it, a familiar voice shouted from behind the beast. "Hey, if you want to forget about me, you have to make sure you've killed me first," Peter shouted. As Peter stood there, she noticed he had his hand over his belly. His regenerative powers were impressive, but he had used too much energy, and for the first time, he felt hungry. It swung its arm out, and Peter could see the blade. With his reaction speed, he was able to react to the attack, but he could tell that he was a little bit too late, and the blade this time would chop his head off. He continued to duck down with all his might, and as he did, the sound of an object swinging fast through the air was heard. "My head! It's all right, it's still on me," Peter thought. Looking at the beast, spirit spears could be seen plunging deep into its body. Sia, who had been watching from the side, was deeply confused. She looked closely at the spears that were inside the beast. They looked identical to her own. The only problem was that she wasn't the one who had thrown them. "They say heroes always arrive at the last second," Varden said with a smile as he appeared out from one of the buildings with Layla standing by his side. "Your family member, Peter Race White, is getting hungry." Seeing this message brought back bad memories for Quinn, but he was worried about what was happening, so he started to pick up the pace. Coming from the side of one of the buildings, both of them had quickly assessed the situation. Seeing a humanoid creature, they knew the others were in danger, and when they saw Peter trying to confront the thing, they didn't have much time to think and needed to act straight away. "Layla, go check up on Logan and see if there's anything you can do to help," Varden said. Varden still had not gotten the chance to gather many abilities. Sia's support ability was at level 4, and Layla's telekinesis ability was at level 2. Using Rayton, he could power that up to level 6. Not only that, but Peter needed Varden's help. Based on the last attack, he had only come out alive by the skin of his teeth. The beast tried to swing its hand mid-air. Then, the spirit blade's time ran out. Now that its speed had returned to normal, it looked up at Peter, ready to finish him off once again. It prepared its legs, ready to spring into action once again, but just before it was about to set off, Varden threw another one of the spirit spears, landing right in the back of the beast's legs. Now the beast was looking in Varden's direction. As it looked down, another spirit spear was stuck in its body. The beast was sure it was keeping an eye on the other boy, so where did the spear come from? "Pretty boy, you owe me a date after this one," Sia shouted. Before the beast could choose its target, Peter was already upon him and had thrown a fist against his solid body. The beast shifted from his position a few inches back. The beast was able to avoid all of the spears thrown by the two. "They say heroes arrive at the last second," Fex said, with his hands twitching, holding the strings using all of his strength. At first, she thought that Fex had saved her, but on closer inspection, a strange purple shadow substance could be seen around it. From the corner of her eye, she could see a black hair boy pulling and twitching off to the side. Sia thought, wasn't he a level 1? As the beast saw its bladed arm being wrapped around by a strange shadow substance, while also being pulled by the strings, it wondered which one was affecting it more. A whisper was suddenly heard in Peter's ear. "Go join the others," Quinn said. "You've fought enough, and if you get hurt again, who knows if you will survive." Peter looked to his side and saw Quinn standing there. He had already equipped all of his beast gear equipment before coming over ready for a battle. "If you are in trouble, I won't hesitate to sacrifice myself," Peter said as he walked off to where the others were. "New quest received. Defeat the king of the underground city, King Tyr Beast Lickmorn.
The town has been left behind, and in its empty place the beasts began to take over. Amongst the many, eventually a single creature took over, calming the seat and the title of the king. The others do his bidding as he protects the treasure located in the tower. Quest reward question. What interested Quinn about this strange quest was, for the first time, it seemed to inform a little bit about how the creature came to be. The beast was no longer curious about the strange shadow in strings, and pulled its arm back out of the shadow. Seeing this, Quinn quickly returned it to himself. There was one great advantage to them being underground. Quinn's shadow powers were stronger. "I need to help them," Varden said. 70% of energy weapon has been created. Whatever Logan was doing, it looked like it still wasn't ready yet, and he couldn't join the fight. "Logan, do you mind if I touch you?" Varden asked. Part of the suit that was covering the arm shifted upward as the suit broke down into hundreds of little spiders, and they did a handshake. With that, Varden started to move. His aim was never to use Logan's ability, but only the MC cells that came with it. They would be able to combine the other abilities, making a spirit spear above a level 8 ability. Fex knew that none of his mind control and charm-like abilities would work on such a powerful creature, which meant they would have to deal with it the old-fashioned way. "Ah!" Fex shouted as he charged in. "Quinn, I'll attack and you cover me with the shadow." Although Quinn didn't agree with the plan, it was already too late as Fex charged in. While charging forward, Fex threw out blood swipes. Seeing this beast, they swung its hand blades at such an incredible speed it looked like it had managed to create its wind strike pressure that clashed with the blood swipes. Using the shadow, Quinn blocked some of the attacks, while also using the blood swipe of his own. The two of them continued to attack while pushing forward. It took the two of them using their blood swipes, including Quinn using his shadow, to match the speed of attacks coming from the King Tier beast, and currently they were at a stalemate. Although they were able to match the power and speed of the King Tier's attacks, they couldn't keep this up forever. In a way, using the blood-type attack drained their life force, and they would eventually run out of energy. "Quinn, charge in!" Fex shouted. "Blood shield!" A wide barrier of blood was lifted from the ground, blocking the incoming attacks. Quinn didn't hesitate and went off to the side. Windwalk activated. Using his extra speed from his intermediate boots, he tried charging in from the side. Blood crescent kick. It was too risky to get in close. It would notice Quinn by then. Even with the attacks coming towards it, it did nothing to block them. The two attacks had landed on the beast, yet not a mark was left on it. "That was one of my most powerful attacks." There was only one thing left for Quinn to try. Flash step. In the middle of his preparation for the strike, the tree root extended arm had turned around and extended, following Quinn's position. Flash step. Quinn tried to execute the flash step, but for the first time he was too slow. The blade pierced through him easily, and now he was attached to the beast via its extended root arm. 60 of 80 HP. Fex, using his great speed, had managed to get within striking distance of the beast. An uppercut fist encased in blood was aiming towards the beast's belly. It was an attack Quinn had never seen before. It was also the strongest attack that Fex had, combining his martial arts with his vampire skills. "You damn tree fell!" he shouted as he plunged his fist right into the center of its belly. Vibrations and pressure of wind came out from the attack, and the beast moved a foot back as it slightly curved and arched its back forward. The beast stood upright and lifted its arm that was attached to Quinn. The two were lifted high, a few meters up in the air, as it used a strong force, slamming him down into one of the buildings off to the side. The building crumbled down on top of Quinn's body as he was thrown down. Most of his bones had been broken, and it was painful to even lift his body. 12 of 80 HP. Blood bank activate. He had no choice, and needed to use the blood bank to heal most of the serious wounds. As his body started to recover, he watched Fex amazingly dodge the beast's fast attacks. The fight continued, and a pool of blood could be seen underneath his 2 feet. The wounds were taking a toll on him as he started to slow down. In the middle of the fight, Fex started to lose hope. Even if he was faster, more skillful, it meant nothing. His strongest attack was unable to hurt the beast. Fex continued to dodge. In the middle of his thoughts, a strange green beam of light could be seen from his side. "Duck!" Instinctively, Fex reacted to the words and ducked his body.
The green beam of light carried on moving forward and went straight through the beast's body.
Energy weapon has been completed.
Looks like it was a success, Logan said. For the first time during the fight, black blood was trickling down from the wound. For the first time since the fight had started, the king-tier beast had finally bled, although Fex was unaware of what had happened. Quinn, who had emerged from the rubble, managed to catch everything with his own 2 eyes. Quinn was still injured, his wounds were worse than usual, and even with the use of the blood bank, his body would take a while to heal. Logan, Quinn thought. Engage, maximum system output, Logan said as he thrust his fist forward. The Qatar-like weapon suddenly grew longer. The green energy extended and went right through the beast's solid body. Fex, I'm going to need your help, Logan said as he pulled out the energy blade from the beast. Suddenly, the beast's attention was on Logan. The beast went in for an attack from above, and Logan went to block with the energy blade, but when Fex looked at them both, it looked like watching a tortoise and hare race against each other. Logan was too slow. Seeing this, using his last bit of energy, Fex pivoted and shifted himself using all his strength to dash forward. "Kill the damn thing!" Fex screamed as more blood was dripping down his arm. "Energy blade, maximum output!" Logan shouted, and at the same time, one of the energy blades seemed to respond. It grew twice in size, and Logan slashed down with all his strength. It went through the beast's side, and the sound of something falling to the ground was heard. The green jade-like arm had been detached from its body, and black blood was now pouring out from the wound. "What is that?" Sia asked, amazed at what was happening. "I've never seen a weapon like that before," Layla said. "I've seen one of these before, or to be more precise, I learned about this before. It's another way to use the beast crystal that was discontinued by the military." "Discontinued? But why?" Sia asked. "As you can see, by using crystals as a form of raw energy, one can create something called an energy blade. The problem is that all of its energy is coming from the crystal, and it needs a constant output to support it. Once all the energy from the crystal has been used, the weapon will disappear. Because of these reasons, the military decided that it was much more practical to use the crystal core to create beast weapons rather than energy weapons." "It looks like the attack was a success," Logan said. With the black blood dripping from the beast's wound, it retreated for the first time, leaping back. Fex wanted to chase after the thing, but when he took a step forward, his wound seemed to have gotten the better of him. He went down to one knee, stopping himself from collapsing on the floor. "I'm more hurt than I thought." There was no point for Logan to chase it either. If he was to chase the beast, he wouldn't catch up to the thing in a million years. Suddenly, the beast's wound started to bleed less. It looked like some vine-like structures were starting to cover over the wound. Next from the wound, a little stump was starting to grow. "Am I imagining things, or is that thing getting smaller?" Layla asked, still looking from the side of the street. "You're right," Peter replied. The group wasn't imagining things. As the stump started to grow, it looked like it was forming another hand. At the same time, the beast was getting smaller in size. "Why don't you lie back down?" a voice said from his side, as he felt a hand touch his shoulder. "Quinn? But how?" Fex asked. "We can talk about that later," Quinn replied while handing the flask back to Fex. "Take it, heal up." It was tempting for Fex, but in the end, he refused again. "No, Quinn, not to be rude, but you're too slow to go against something like this. You keep it." "Don't worry about that," Quinn said as he walked forward. "Are you sure you would like to add all 6 points to agility?" "Points added. 26 plus 4 agility." When Quinn said these words, Fex felt his confidence. "Who are you really? Is this the difference between the Punishers and the rest of us?" So far, Fex had multiple guesses about who Quinn was, but all of them seemed to be missing the mark. Still, Fex went off to the side and leaned up against the building wall. Ham, who had been flying and hovering in the air for most of the time, came swooping down. "Ham, if I don't come back from this, I want you to go back to the others. Don't stay here," Fex ordered. "What do you mean?" Ham replied. "I know the wounds are bad, but you should eventually heal from this, right?" As Ham said those words, he started to look at the wounds, but from the multiple cuts that were mainly on his upper body and arms, blood was still seeping out. "Master, are you doing this on purpose?" Fex didn't reply. "And what about the other vampire? If I return, do you want me to inform them about him?" Ham asked. Both Logan and Quinn now stood a few meters apart from the smaller version of the king-tiered beast that they were up against. "Logan, I want you to stay behind me. When I give the call, I want you to attack with all that you have, Quinn said. The beast had waited long enough, instead of charging in as it usually did. It decided to swing out its bladed arm and stretch it out from the side. Right now, Quinn was standing directly in front of Logan. With this attack, it was clear that its target was Logan. "You're not the only one that can do something like that." Quinn threw a blood swipe and then grabbed it quickly with his shadow. He had made his shadow scythe. He swung it down from above, hoping to hammer it down before it reached Logan. Bang! Like a hammer coming down on a nail. The scythe managed to knock the tree root arm, pinning it to the ground. "That attack wasn't that strong last time," Fex said, seeing this. I just... Sia was at a loss for words. They were all monsters. "Can you do something like that?" Sia asked Layla. So far, she seemed to be the only normal one in the group. "As I said, they saved your life earlier. These guys are amazing." As she said those words, she too wished she would be able to take part in the fight, rather than stand by the side. Seeing that the beast was targeting Logan and not him, Quinn knew he needed to do something. Windwalk activated. Activating his boots, he dashed forward and traveled at a speed that had never been achieved by him before. In an instant, he had nearly covered the entire distance, and was now directly in front of the beast. Punching the beast as hard as it could in the stomach, Quinn was hoping to make some sort of impact, but it didn't even budge. As its other hand retracted back, it started swinging away, attacking him in the same way as it did with Fex. Only the result this time was different. Every strike was avoided. This speed! Did he hide his strength? Just how? Fex was now even more confused than before. Bloodhammer was still the strongest skill in Quinn's arsenal, but it took quite a long time to perform. However, the hammer strike, with his increased speed, could be performed fast enough. He just needed to know how to land the attack. Right now, he was facing a humanoid-type beast. Not only that, but it had some level of intelligence as well. With this in mind, Quinn threw out a punch from above. Using his speed, he threw out one after another. The first attack was blocked, and when the beast saw the second one, it twisted its body slightly to avoid the blow. Then, something strange happened. It had blocked one punch and dodged the other, yet a third hand had come out and hit the beast right on its temple of its rounded head. "Looks like the phantom punch is a success," said Quinn with a smile. Quinn wasn't so sure if it would work, but it was obvious that it worked, and was incredibly useful in the battle. The standoff between the two continued, with Quinn avoiding most of the blows cleanly. Once again, another blow landed, this time on the beast's neck, just above its chest. "Again? Is the beast starting to slow down?" Sia thought. But watching closely, Fex could see that the beast hadn't slowed down at all. Its movements were still as fast as ever, so what was happening? "It's got to be the phantom punch. I can't think of anything else. He's mixing it with the ordinary jabs and hooks. But who taught him the phantom punch, and when?" Even with all these points, and even if Quinn did have a teacher that was in the school, it didn't explain the crazy amount of time it had taken him to learn such a skill. Now, Fex was frightened. The punches continued to descend like a waterfall. "I was wrong," Sia said. "I can't believe I thought he was useless. I'm sorry, Layla. I now understand why you got mad." As Layla watched Quinn, even she hadn't expected something like this from him. Although, the tides had turned in the fight, with Quinn being able to attack the beast several times. It did not affect it whatsoever. The blows didn't leave any wounds or marks, and it had barely moved from its original position due to Quinn's attacks. "He must be doing something," Quinn thought. Otherwise, why would the beast attempt to block the attacks? Still, he wasn't doing enough damage. "Looks like I have to use the hammer strike after all," Quinn thought. Another phantom punch was delivered to the stomach. As the beast went to block the attack, a flash step was performed, and Quinn was now standing directly behind the beast. The movements of the hammer strike had started, and the beast attempted to turn around. As it did, its movements slowed down, and its feet got stuck in the place where it was standing. It hadn't noticed that during the fight, Quinn had moved his shadow down to the beast's feet. Holding it in place, the plan was never to keep the beast there. He knew it wouldn't hold it back long enough, but it was enough time for him to perform the hammer strike. Placing his foot down, he pulled one arm back, and snapped the other one out, hitting the beast right in the center. For the first time, it lifted into the air, and when it landed, the beast stumbled, struggling to stand on its 2 feet. "Attack now!" Quinn ordered. "Did I wait too long?" Varden said as he watched from a window up high. But right now, Varden could tell what had happened to the beast. It was now in rage mode. With this, the maximum amount of energy from the crystal inside them would pump around their body. Beasts rarely went into this mode, due to the fact they could only go into it once, if all the energy from the crystal was used up while in rage mode. They would die and no longer exist. The other problem was, if a beast was killed while it was in rage mode, the crystal obtained from it would be useless. The Qatar continued to thrust forward. Seeing this, the beast knocked the weapon away, shattering it, as its attack collided against the weapon. Lifting its legs out, it extended like a fast piston, hitting Logan in the stomach. Logan was flung back in the air and was thrown several feet down the street. As he was chucked through the air, several of the spiders that made up the suit seemed to fall onto the ground as well. Fex, seeing this, was now sure. He had made the right decision. Slowly his body was starting to change. His muscles were bulging, his skin shrinking, and his hair was falling off from the top of his head. Ham flew away from his master, looking back at what Fex had become. He had a sad look on his face.
"So you did transform."
Varden had the best view of what was going on down below. He and Rayton had switched places, and Rayton was ready to throw the spirit spear. Just before doing so, Rayton informed Varden about something. With the use of MC cells from both Logan and Sia, Varden right now had one of the strongest support abilities out there. As he continued to watch from above, his heart started to sink. It was because there was something else down there with them that had brought back bad memories. Fex, who was leaning up against one of the buildings, was no longer there, or at least was no longer himself. Instead, the sight of what was known as a bloodsucker was there instead. "Quinn, behind you!" Varden shouted. Quinn had his eyes dead set ahead. As he turned his head, he could see a bald, muscle-bound creature. The claws on its hands had widened. If it wasn't for the clothes that it was wearing, Quinn would never have known it was Fex. "What is that?" Quinn said. "Don't you remember?" the system said. "He has turned into a bloodsucker." "Did he do this willingly?" Quinn asked. "Perhaps for a vampire to turn into a bloodsucker, they must have an immense amount of thirst," the system explained. "My guess is, when he was wounded by the beast, he suppressed his healing abilities, allowing the blood to continue to drain from his body. Vampires aren't often taught this, since a bloodsucker doesn't even see its kind as a friend, which would suggest he is an important figure, perhaps the son of one of the vampire's heads." Although the explanation was interesting for Quinn, he didn't have much time to think about it. He looked to his left, he looked to his right, waiting for one of them to make their first movement. At the same time, the bloodsucker and beast dashed forward. "Damn it, Shadow Cloak!" Quinn said. From his feet, the shadow rose, and suddenly Quinn had vanished from their sight. As Quinn hurried to escape from the area, the two of them clashed in the center of the street. The bloodsucker swiped its claw, while the beast threw out its balded arm. Instead of going over to where the others were, Quinn decided to stay quite close to the fight. In the back of his mind, there was one thing he kept thinking about: the quest. While the beast was in its rage mode, there was only one attack that could do any type of damage, and that was the Bloodhammer. The only question was how. How would he get the last hit? The fight continued between the bloodsucker and the King Tier beast. When a vampire turns into a bloodsucker, their health, or in Quinn's case HP, decreases. Their wounds would also no longer heal. It was a starved state for vampires, a mode that allowed them to grow stronger to consume blood, but also acted as a double-edged sword. However, slowly one of them was starting to get an edge, and it looked like it was the bloodsucker. Quinn planned to inch closer and closer and try to get behind the King Tier beast. Running forward and around the two, he wanted to get behind the fight. As he took a step to the side, suddenly a large claw-like fist came out towards him. The fist was briefly stopped by the shadow, and when he looked at where it had come from, it was from the bloodsucker. "It could sense where I was even with the shadow cloak on?" Quinn thought. "Luckily I already thought that something like this might happen and prepared my shadow just in case." Quinn quickly stepped back and went to his position before. It looked like Fex really could no longer differentiate between friend and foe. For now, Quinn's MC points had reached 0. 0 of 100 MC. The only thing was, now the others could see him as well. "Quinn, what are you doing? Leave it to the two monsters," Varden said from above. The beast had done the same, as last time after its arm had been ripped out. It wanted to take a few steps back and start to recover, but the bloodsucker wasn't going to let it go. When the beast dashed backwards, the bloodsucker chased it. With a swipe to its chest, the red roots were split open, and the black blood squirted out once again. Obsessed with getting the quest reward for killing the thing, Quinn dashed forward. Seeing this, the bloodsucker leaped in the air, and it looked like it would close the distance between the two with one jump. The others expected Quinn to attempt to dodge, but instead, he started to go through the motion of the hammer strike, timing everything perfectly when the bloodsucker jumped. Just when it was about to land, Quinn performed a flash step. Avoiding the attack, he appeared in front of the king-tier beast. Bloodhammer! The beast was already weak, and using all the strength he could, he snapped back his arm and with the punch, released the power of the level 2 blood spray, performing a bloodhammer. Carefully, Quinn had hit the same spot where the bloodsucker had clawed out the roots, protecting its upper body. Unlike before, the attack seemed to go through. Quest completed. Defeat the king-tier beast. Looking at Fex, a large, thick blue spirit spear was stuck inside the bloodsucker. Quinn, I can't produce another one like that. Finish him now if you can. A voice was heard shouting from down the street. Looking behind the bloodsucker, Quinn could see Varden running towards him. The spear had come from him. Kill Fex? Quinn said. No, he couldn't do that. It was only because of him that they were able to kill the king-tier beast in the first place. While watching what was going on, the girl started to hear a few voices from somewhere. So, just a little further ahead and the beast you encountered before should be here? A confident young voice said. Yes, sir. Every time we wanted to go explore the tower, the beast would come out and stop us, a female voice said. Down the street, a group of travelers was walking together. It was easy to spot them, since each of them had a sticky light patch on them. It allowed the area around the person to be bathed in light. They were the group of travelers who had reported to the military, updating them about the exploration, a female voice said. It looks like there are other people here. Heck, they're kids, aren't they? The group quickly rushed over to the students and was shocked at the state. The students looked quite young. They were a group of 5. All of them had beast gear covering their bodies. The female was the first to approach them, named Lily, who also had a bow on her back. Only hers looked a level higher than what Layla had. Then there were a couple of bald twins. None of them held a weapon in their hand, but their legs were covered in thick boots, while the rest of their legs had light armor. It was a strange sight. They were called Rock and Pock. There was another man who seemed to be staying by the youngest-looking person's side. He had a shield on his back, with a sword sheathed at his waist. The man looked a little older than the others. It was as if he had been assigned to look after the whole team, but after listening to them for a while, Layla quickly figured out that he wasn't the leader. It was the young man standing next to them. The young man had brown, wavy hair that was tied up in a ponytail. His weapon of choice was a spear, placed on his back. It was as long as him in length. The most noticeable thing about him was the air around him. I'm the leader, Andre, the young man said. What happened here? Do you guys get attacked? Loud footsteps could be heard in the shadows, where the team had come from. A figure slowly came out of the darkness. Another beast, and it looks like a strong one, Sia exclaimed in a panic. But the group of travelers didn't look panicked at all. The strange beast looked like a lion, and was the same size as one. Its muscles could be seen as well, but on its bottom half, instead of a single tail, it carried several, each with a small flame at the end. The lion approached Andre's side and started to lick him in the face. A tame beast? Layla said. That's right, Lily replied. Andre, the leader of the group, had a beast by his side, and he could very well control it, which meant that he belonged to the Bree family. Depending on their level and control of the ability, it allowed them to tame higher and lower-level beasts. The Brees were incredibly talented when it came to fighting, but while taming a stronger beast, one would have to show it was stronger than what it was trying to tame. With their incredible fighting skills and strong beasts, they were able to work together, creating a powerful force, and eventually climbed up the ladder to be a part of the Big Four. Trying to think quickly on his feet, Quinn took out the flask. However, even before Quinn was able to do that, a strange lion-like beast had jumped in between Varden and the bloodsucker. As it pounced towards the bloodsucker, the flames on its tails grew brighter. The two of them clashed in the center, claw against paw, and surprisingly, it was outpowered and pushed back. Looks like you're going to need my help with this one, Cookie. The young man Andre held out his spear and stood by his lion's side. The two bald twins had appeared, one by Varden's side and the other by Peter's side. You guys did well to survive against such a thing, one of them said, but you can now leave it to us, the other said, ending the first one's sentence. The twins were insistent, and before they could even reply, they were already trying to pull both Varden and Peter out of the fighting area. The two boys were taken out of the area, and now Andre and Andy felt like they could fight with no worry. "It looks like this beast has some level of intelligence," Andre said as he jumped up onto Andy's shoulder, before running on top of his shield and jumping right on the edge towards the beast. From the side, Cookie, the lion beast, pounced once again. The flames this time on its tail were, even more, brighter than before, and when they clashed, neither one of them fell back. The bloodsucker seemed to be slightly stronger, but Andre wanted it held there for a moment. As he thrust his spear forward, he was able to hit the creature right between the ribs. Fex began to scream in pain as the pointy object was jammed into him. "Get away from my friend!" a strange robotic and deep voice was heard. As the group turned to look at the speaker, all they could see was a human figure dressed in a black suit, wearing a demon mask that was covering its bottom jaw, while its eyes were white and shaped like a demon. During the fight with the king-tier beast, he hadn't done this because they needed Fex in his bloodsucker form. What he didn't expect to happen was that the small group of travelers would be able to overpower the bloodsucker. After seeing him get stabbed in the ribs and howling in pain, Quinn had enough. Before jumping in to help Fex, Quinn had made the quick decision to put all of his points into the charm stat. 22 charm points. This unlocked the next tier in his charm, and Quinn could tell that it would be different when he used it next. With no time to lose, Quinn needed to reveal himself from the shadows, targeting his blood swipe at the leader, Andre. "Why did you attack me? We're trying to get rid of this beast," Andre said, annoyed at the strange figure. Looking at Andre's fight against Fex, Quinn could tell he was strong. With the little HP he currently had, on top of no longer having any MC points to use his shadow ability, Quinn didn't want to do anything stupid, like confront Andre and Andy. He quickly popped the lid of the flask, and straight away he was able to smell the sweet aroma of blood coming from it. "I hope this works," Quinn said. And just like that, Fex turned his head, catching the same smell as Quinn. Now, this was the hard part. Immediately, Quinn started to run off in the direction of the tower, and Fex chased after him. Both of them ran down the street into the darkness. Both of them were now invisible, since they were no longer in the sticky lights that Logan had shot on the street. Quinn started running at full speed, activating his windwalk boots, but he knew it would be useless with the great speed of the bloodsucker. The only thing he could do was run into buildings to slow Fex down. In one of the abandoned buildings, there was an empty large room. He quickly placed the flask on the floor and ran aside. He was still unsure if Fex would continue chasing after him or go after the flask. When Fex reached the flask on the floor, he immediately picked it up, using its clawed hands. He shook the flask and poured the contents into his mouth without allowing a drop of it to touch the floor. "Well, I'm glad that's over with," Quinn said. While Fex was busy going back to his regular self, Quinn looked out the window and at the tower. "I wonder what's in there. Who was that guy?" one of the twins said as he accepted Andre's hand to stand up from the ground. "I'm not sure. I haven't seen that ability before either," Andre replied. "Most likely an original that's on this planet or an independent traveler." "Hey, I think you better come and take a look at this," Andy shouted to the others. The three of them prodded along, and when their eyes made contact with what Andy was looking at, the two twins nearly keeled over from the shock. That's the king-tiered beast we fought against before," the twins shouted. They had fought several times against the king beast as a team without Andre, so they knew the strength of the beast. "What do you think happened?" Andy asked. Andre then knelt beside the beast and started fleshing out certain parts of the beast's cadaver. They knew what he was doing. He was looking for the beast's crystal. It was located where the human heart would be, slightly to the left of the middle of the chest. The extracted crystal didn't look common at all. It was clearer and wasn't as murky and didn't radiate any light at all. "I'm surprised. There's still a crystal inside? How come it wasn't extracted?" one of the twins said. "Perhaps it was killed recently," Andy replied. "Perhaps the creature and the strange man from before were the ones that killed it?" Andy said. "They were the only ones here at the time." "No," Andre replied. "There were others here as well." While saying this, Andre looked in the direction of Varden and the others. On the cold floor of an abandoned building, Fex could be seen lying on the floor. Quinn didn't want to wake him up. He had gone far and beyond for the safety of others. "Maybe vampires aren't as bad as you say," Quinn said to the system. Thankfully, Quinn was able to hide his identity using the costume and mask Logan had created for him. Also, Fex was unrecognizable as the bloodsucker. He had his uniform on, but in the fight with the king-tiered beast, it was badly damaged and had been rendered unrecognizable. The travelers looked like they were trying to help Varden and Peter. Once Fex woke up, Quinn would go and meet up with them before they left the cave. But before all of that, there was still one thing he wanted to check out before leaving: the tower. Finally, with Fex sleeping away, Quinn had a chance to look at all the rewards other than the EXP and the blood ability increase he had received. With the increase in blood skills, all his attacks related to blood skills had gotten stronger, but the most impressive of them all was the blood bank. It was now able to store double the amount of blood at 200 milliliters. Quest reward, unlock one ability skill. It seemed to be related to the shadow skill. New skill, Shadow Eater unlocked. He would look at the details of the skill later. He was a bit upset when he found out that he wasn't able to grab the king-tiered beast crystal, but in return, it seemed like the system had given him something else. Small blood crystal 1 obtained. That is a very rare item. Although you have no use for it now, I suggest you store it in your system for safekeeping, the system stated, refusing to elaborate. But hearing the system say such a thing was precious, it still placed a smile on Quinn's face. The last 2 notifications were the strangest. Quest, reach level 20 for next evolution. Reward, next evolution Vampire Noble. Additional rewards will be revealed once rank has been reached. Quest, part 1 of 2. The king has been defeated, and now the tower is left unprotected. Search the tower and discover what treasure it was trying to protect. Suddenly, he heard someone groaning behind him. It looked like Fex was waking up.
What the hell happened?
Fex said, looking around at where he was. He then looked down and noticed the flask on the floor. Images of his transformation into Bloodsucker appeared in his head, and he remembered everything that happened.
You saved me?
Fex said. Come on, I can explain while we're making our way over, Quinn replied.
Over where?
To the tower. The group of travelers had regrouped and were heading toward the students. Lily had been watching the fight carefully and wanted to join in, but she knew her duty was to stay by the students' side in case anything happened. As she saw the 2 twins walking over groggily, she rushed over to their side. Are you both all right? I saw what happened. Who was that guy? She asked as she gave her shoulder to one of the bald twins. That's what we want to know as well, Andre replied. You students, your uniform, I assume you are from one of the military bases out on an outing. 2nd year, right? We're first years. What is the military thinking sending in first years? Have the times gotten that desperate? Well, if you look at the structures around us, perhaps, Andre said. I wanted to ask you guys, what happened? The king-tier beast on the ground. Did you see what happened to it? And do you know what that other creature was? And last of all, what about the strange demon-masked man? Peter, Varden, and Ila wanted to keep their mouths shut. That king-tier beast, it was killed by me. Another voice interrupted before Sia was able to finish her sentence. Logan, are you okay? Layla asked. I'll live, Logan replied. It took everything I had with the help of my friends here, but we were finally able to kill the king-tier beast. As for the strange person who appeared at the end, your guess is as good as ours. He only appeared when you guys saw him as well. Andre started to think about Logan's words. They were convincing. Also, it was hard to imagine why the students would even lie in this type of situation when they had seen firsthand that the creature was trying to kill them. On the other hand, there was also Sia. She didn't know who the masked man was while the others did, but what she did know was that Fex was the one who had turned into a monster, and Quinn was nowhere to be seen after killing the king-tier. She wasn't completely stupid. Quinn had been using the red aura attacks, and the masked man had done the same. Most likely Quinn was trying to protect Fex. Okay, I've decided then, Andre said. Let's take them back to the shelter. The students and the group of travelers started to head out of the small town. While doing so, Varden and Layla would constantly look around, hoping to find Quinn and Fex. I hope you bring me a nice souvenir to work on from that tower, Quinn, Logan thought. Logan, I don't think I can hold it in for much longer. What? If you want to go to the toilet, just go. It's too dark here anyway. Nobody will see anything. No, it's not that. Hearing those words, Logan knew straight away what Peter meant. He was hungry. Before heading off to the tower, Quinn made sure of 2 things. The first thing was that his MC points were fully restored. The second thing was that he was fully equipped with all his equipment. Of course, that included his suit, which was made by Logan. There was no more blood in the flask. Fex had consumed all of it, and in doing so, it looked like his wounds were healing too. The armor that Logan created gave him some additional defense. Although it wasn't much, every little increment would help, and this was his reason for putting it on. "Are you all ready, then?" Quinn asked Fex. "Quinn, wait!" Fex said as he rushed over and bowed down on one knee with his fist on the floor. "Whoa, what's this all about? I have to do this, please. Quinn, you saved my life. I remember everything that happened while I was the bloodsucker. You fought against those travelers and risked me chasing after you. Finally, you used the flask that I had given you to save me." This whole time, he had been getting closer to Quinn for one reason, to save his own back. If he was ever to be found out by his clan, then Fex's idea was to turn Quinn in as one of the shadow users, while Quinn had never thought about abandoning him. Fex no longer cared about how he was able to do it, or why he seemed to keep growing stronger. He had just had this feeling of guilt over his heart that he wanted to get rid of. "I'm on your side, Quinn." Quinn didn't know what to say. At the time, Quinn had only done what he felt was right. Fex had risked his life to save the whole group. What right did he have to die by the hand of strangers? Quinn didn't know why, but he naturally walked over to Fex and extended his hand. Fex, in return, naturally took it and lifted himself. "We're blood brothers from now on," Fex said with a smile. "We may not be related by blood, but I will treat you as a part of my family." "And I will do the same." After slowly creeping their way towards the tower, by going through buildings rather than going down the open street towards the tower, it seemed like they hadn't seen a single beast on their way there. Is it the strange crystals from the top of the tower, or did the other beasts stay away from this place because of the king-tier beast? Quinn thought. The crystals shone brightly at the top and gave off a slightly blue hue to the area below it. "We can take some time to explore if you're worried." "What do you mean?" "The others would leave with those travelers. More than likely, they already know of an exit. I asked my little Ham to follow them from above. Once he knows where the exit is, he'll come and find me." "Ham, is that the little flying bull from earlier?" "Yeah, good name, right?" Ignoring Fex's last words, Quinn continued to walk up to the tower. In the middle of the door, there was a circular hole that seemed to go a few inches deep. "It's a lock," Fex said. "These doors, I've seen them in my castle before. They're impossible to open without some type of key or mechanism. They're meant to even withstand attacks from the vampire leaders." "Doesn't that mean there's something important here?" "Yeah, but I don't know what." Going up to the door, Quinn decided to try and give it a push using all his strength. He was half expecting it to do something, but as Fex had informed him, it didn't budge at all. "I told you it was pointless, man. Don't give up yet," the system said. "Do you remember that red blood crystal you received from defeating the king-tier beast? Why don't you place that on the door and see what happens?" He took out the crystal from his inventory and placed it in the strange hole inside the door. The gears shifted, and the door pulled inwards, opening a way up inside the tower. "Are you coming?" Ham was up in the air while looking down at the fairly large town. It was slowly following the group of students, along with the travelers, to see where they were heading. "I hope Master is all right," Ham said. "Peter, how long can you hold out? Until we get outside, I might be able to do something by then." Peter immediately looked up at Logan from his position. His eyes were starting to show a slight tint of red in them. "Okay, looks like you won't last that long." Finally, the group had reached one of the tunnels that led out of the city. While walking through the tunnels, Logan had come up with an idea. "So with all these tunnels, how do you guys know the way out? These tunnels are like a maze, and they either seem to loop with each other or all end up going back to the original town we just left from. In the end, we never found an exit, so we decided to create our own. In one of the tunnels, we marked ourselves." Logan had scanned the place before coming down, so he knew there was a space between the surface and the ground they were currently on, and was prepared for it. It was a sad thought, but some of the other students were consumed by the strange, plant-like beast. All Logan needed to do was to make them split up with the others and search through the tunnels for one of these dead students that Peter could feed on. Finally, the group exited the tunnel and entered another larger section with several more tunnels. The second they entered the room, though, Peter loudly screamed as if he was in pain. It seemed too sudden. By Logan's predictions, they should have had more time. Looking around the room, though, he soon spotted the cause. His theory was right. Some students had fallen to their deaths after being consumed by the plant because there were a couple of students in front of them. The smell and sight of the students had caused a reaction inside him. Not knowing what to do, Logan rushed towards Peter with his suit still on and picked him up from the ground. Peter remained motionless in the same position, not even moving his hands. He just kept groaning. Right now he was using every bit of energy and was concentrating on not lashing out and going toward the students. But even more so, he didn't want to bite his friend Logan, who was carrying him right now. Logan kept running with Peter on his shoulder, picking a tunnel at random. "Wait, what are you doing?" Lily shouted. The others had already gone over to inspect the other students to see if they were still alive and if there was anything they could do. Unaware of the commotion going on behind them, they only realized something was happening when Lily shouted out to them. "Wait!" Lily shouted out again, genuinely concerned for the two, so she decided to chase after them. Suddenly, Logan's hand had transformed into one of his blasters. He aimed it at the ceiling and blasted it away, causing the tunnel to crumble down, blocking the path between them. "We should go after them," Lily suggested. "No," Andre replied. "Couldn't you see it? The other student caused the tunnel to collapse on purpose. For now, it's best if we leave that mystery unsolved and head back to the base." The group continued to walk through the tunnels, while also instructing the students to look away from the dead bodies. "Why do you think they ran off?" Layla asked Varden. "If I was to guess, it would have something to do with Peter again. Logan wouldn't put his neck out on the line like that for no reason." "Do you think Logan will be okay? What if Peter gets hungry again and tries to eat Logan?" "Impossible. Trust me, by now you should have been able to tell. Logan is not the one to worry about if the two of them get into a fight. It's Peter." Although that might have been the case before, Logan had used up several of his trump cards in the fight against the king-tier beast. He was also a bit injured from the battle, and lastly, Quinn had grown stronger from the fight. That meant Peter had to as well.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.